Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and welcome to LifeSpa.com, where we prove the ancient medical wisdom of Ayurveda with modern science. And today, let's talk about tongue diagnosis, evaluating your own tongue to get a sense of your digestive integrity. You know, for thousands of years in pretty much every system of medicine, looking at one's tongue was an important part of the diagnostic process. When I was a kid, maybe even still today, you go to the doctor, they give you a checkup, they stick a tongue depressor in your mouth, and you say, ah, and they look at your throat, but they also look at the coating and on your tongue and the quality of the texture of your skin on your tongue. It's something that has been lost of recent, but it is a very important piece of the diagnostic puzzle. So what does it mean? Well, the first thing you want to look at is sort of like your constitutional tongue, a vata, who is thinner and drier, will have a thinner and more dry tongue, maybe even a little bit more of a pale tongue. Maybe because their skin is rough and dry, the tongue might be a little bit on the rough or dry side. A pitta tongue will be a bigger tongue than the vata tongue, a little bit more reddish versus pale, maybe a little cleaner and less of a film on the tongue. We should all remember that a normal tongue, a normal tongue is when the tongue is actually not too red, not too pale. It's just right. Has a very thin white coating on it, and it's full and clean, and you can see little cylindrical taste buds on your tongue reaching out, trying to taste some food, right? A kapha tongue would be a bigger tongue, a little bit more of a wet tongue, maybe even a little bit more of a swollen tongue. So you have the vata, thin, dry tongue, pitta, a little bit bigger, a little bit reddish, a little cleaner tongue, because the heat tends to burn off some of the film that would be there normally, and the kapha tongue, bigger and more swollen, and maybe it could be usually just a good quality pinkish color. Okay, so a normal tongue that you're looking for is pink, not red, not pale. Not red, scarlet, not clean, it should have a nice thin white coating on it. Shouldn't have any teeth marks on the side. It should be full, and you should see little round cylindrical taste buds reaching out trying to taste stuff. Okay, so the first tongue I want to talk about, in the article associated with this video, I go to quite some detail into the evaluation of one's tongue. And why I like this is because you can look at your tongue, and then you can go and improve your digestion, and then you can come back a month later and see a different tongue. You can literally see the intestine, the stomach lining, the intestinal skin quality of your represented on your tongue change, which is really cool. So you get some instant positive reinforcement for making the dietary digestive changes that you've made. So it's kind of a really cool idea. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about are the big generalization tongues that I talk about. One's called the movie star tongue. A movie star tongue is when you see a tongue that is red and clean and smooth and spotless, and it just looks like a movie star tongue. Well, that tongue isn't actually very effective in digesting everything. A lot of times when that movie star tongue is so clean and so shiny and so reddish color, the red is because there's underlying irritation that causes the tissues of your digestive tract all the way through to turn reddish color. Like you get a cut, it turns red. That's irritation. When the tongue gets irritated or the intestinal tract gets irritated, mostly we're evaluating the tongue, the esophagus, stomach, and upper small intestine. The qualities of those tissues are represented on your tongue. It's all one big tube, right? So we're looking at the same skin throughout. But when that tongue gets irritated, the taste buds will contract, the villi in your intestinal tract will contract, and you'll lose the ability to absorb quality nutrition and detoxify, because your digestive system both detoxifies you and delivers the nutrients, right? So if the tongue is red, it's irritated. If the taste buds are all look like someone took some sandpaper and sanded it down, and it's really super smooth, and you can't see any round cylindrical taste buds in there, and they're gone, movie star tongue, but not a functional tongue. Does that make sense? If you see scallops on the side of the tongue, teeth marks, that's an indication that the tongue isn't full, and there's some areas of irritation that could be also on the tongue. Back to the movie star tongue, if it's super clean And red, the tongue normally should have a thin white film on it. It shouldn't be perfectly clean. So even though we want that perfectly clean red tongue, super white teeth, that red tongue, completely smooth, sanded down, shiny, and even a little on the wet side is not, very, very healthy. When the tongue is irritated, the intestinal skin will produce a certain amount of reactive mucus, and that irritation can cause mucus, and you'll see a thin, irritated, retracted taste buds, maybe red, but a wet tongue. So a wet tongue is one of those signs that there's some intestinal irritation that's there. Pitta types tend to do that really, really well, and so do kapha types who like to make a lot of mucus, so you'll see that happen as well. A boggy tongue is when the tongue is not only wet, but sort of on the swollen side. This is a kapha tongue, and it's usually not red, which is a lot of fire. It's usually on the paler side, which means the digestive fire has been dialed down. And I talk about in the article, like what herbs you might think about. If you see a boggy tongue, do we want something to spice it up, like ginger and cumin and hot spicy herbs? We talk about in that article how to actually use herbs to sort of help bring the tongue, therefore your digestion, back into balance. When you're under stress, we know that the tongue reflects that. Tongue can be thinner, can be dry, more vata looking. There can be a crack down the middle. Also, cracks on your tongue are indicated by chronic vata stress that can impact the quality of your tongue as well. It's sort of really interesting, right? All these different things that can happen to your tongue, which is why they looked at it for so many thousands of years, because it was important. Ama, undigested food, can build up on the tongue and give you the classic, very thick coated tongue. Okay? I just had a patient today who came in, she had chemotherapy, and she wanted to do a detox for the chemotherapy to get it out of her system, and her tongue was completely coated. Everywhere you look, it was just thick white coating. Clearly, we needed to fire up our digestion and help her body, her intestinal skin detoxify, because all the villi get bogged down throughout the entire intestinal tract, and they therefore compromise the absorption of the good nutrition and the ability to get the waste out. So that's really important as well. And then things to kind of do to sort of help keep your tongue healthy. Ayurveda was all about that, scraping your tongue. Best is a copper tongue scraper because it's naturally an antiseptic metal. And when you scrape your tongue, you actually remove what are called volatile sulfur compounds that can cause bad breath. So that's a really cool thing, and there's good science to back that up. I've written a ton about that. So when you scrape your tongue, you're getting all those benefits. And also oil pulling. When you take some oil and you swish it around your mouth, it could be coconut and sesame with some herbs like turmeric, maybe a little peppermint oil. That's the one that we use called Swish. And you put it in, you swish it around, and they show that when you actually pre-digest those oils, swish them around, it creates a saponification, which means they turn into soap, they become antiseptic, and both the tongue scraping and the oil pulling has been shown to actually, once you sort of pre-digest the oils, by swishing them around for 10 minutes, you actually can break down a bacteria called Streptococcus mutans, which is linked to 64% of the arterial plaque that people have in their arteries, and now being linked to plaque that can build up in the brain as well. So what we're finding in the research is that our mouth, and therefore our tongue, and the integrity of all of that determines the protective barrier to let certain bugs not penetrate into our bloodstream and find their way into our arteries or our brain, causing problems with plaque accumulation. So it does make sense that Ayurveda put a lot of energy into brushing your teeth, oil pulling, tongue scraping. There was just a lot of emphasis in how we care for our mouth and the oral hygiene. But maybe even more important for the tongue quality than the oral hygiene is the actual strength of your digestion. And I've written a ton about how to kind of diagnose whether it be occasional heartburn or indigestion or gas or bloating or intolerance to foods, wheat, dairy, nuts, seeds, corn. I wrote a book about it called Eat Wheat. The whole point is that these harder to digest foods that a lot of us have trouble with are caused not by, yes, there's processed versions of those foods which are terrible. Yes, they're not organic. There's pesticides on them that kill the microbes that help us make the enzymes to actually digest these hard to digest foods. That's all very, very real. But in addition, there is the breakdown of our digestive system because of all the processed foods and the bad oils that I talk a lot about, that we have to get away from those and then reset digestive function. And that is what Ayurveda was all about, is resetting digestive function. So go to my digestive health section of my website, read the tons of articles and videos that are there, and learn and help troubleshoot your own digestive system, figure it out, fix it, take a look at your tongue before you start the process, read the articles, follow the steps, and then keep watching your tongue along the way and see if we can get you back to a healthy tongue, which is pink, not red, not pale, not smooth. Taste buds reaching out, trying to taste stuff. You'll see little cylindrical taste buds on your tongue. A thin white film and a full tongue with the same consistency of skin epithelium all around the tongue. Same color, same consistency, no ulcers, no spots, the same consistency throughout the tongue. That's a normal tongue. Good luck. Go get that normal tongue. Check out the article where I go into much more detail at LifeSpa.com on tongue diagnosis. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard.